was a Stoic, taught on the porch. And in fact, the porch, those pillars weren't usually just white. And the statues usually weren't just white. Are you aware of that? They actually painted them to look real, like real people and stuff. So the name was the painted porch, which is Stoa Pokoile. Interesting. You know, some of these things you could use at cocktail parties. You know, when people ask you, "Oh, are you a Stoic?" "Oh, the Stoa Pokoile." You know, that's obviously genius. You know, we know that we like this person. You know. It's mostly if you're a male trying to, you know, attract, you know, we don't have the plumage, you know, that the peacocks do. So we say things like Stoa Pokoile, and they go, ooh. You know. Or you wear a nice sweater. Oh, sorry. So Stoics. What is the interesting thing about a Stoics and why? So Epicurus. Oh! You know what? I really should show you this. Last thing for Epicurus. Do not live this way. Bellini Satyricon. And I want specifically remember how to spell his name, right? So this is Roman Error around Nero. It's a movie by Fellini, who was a great producer roughly after World War II. But the Satyricon itself was a work written during the Roman period, and so the movie is based on the Satyricon, which is. This is the Feast of Trimalchio. He's a rich man. All they do all day long, every day, is feast. And this was partly blamed on Epicurus. They thought they were following the suggestions of Epicurus. I should have raised the volume for the Italians.
Anche a tavola i classici ci stanno bene. Questa qui è la prima barba che vegliai. Io sembravo un giovane di 14 anni.
He saved his beard to show off.
Protettore la nostra proprietà. Affarone, contentone, guadagnone, propizi siano gli dei.
Do you still use the expression, "this is gross"? And not as 144, but like, ugh.
Segnato il caso se l'acquisto. E l'uno nell'altro sono stato lasciato il testamento da parte. Così da più grosso così, ma attento che se non ti è bene ti passano la defuria dei scopini. Una volta un povero ricco vendeva lì. E che cos'è?
Che cos'è? Che cos'è un povero? What's a poor man? I think the Italian is he's got to go throw up.
Quanto di volte hai visto la notte? Allora non c'è niente di meglio che passare dal letto alla tavola. Abbiamo avuto un gran freddo, il bagno mi ha scaldato a stelle. Ah, meno che mosche siamo, meno che mosche. Loro una certa resistenza ce l'hanno, ma noi niente più che delle povere siamo.
O così come ci pregunto di rimanere per non iniziare.
You ever heard of vomitorians or vomitoria? It's like a special room in the palace where you could go to throw up. So if you were eating all day, you would get full,
Aveva più di 70 anni ancora.
But so you would go and you would make yourself throw up and then come back so you could eat some more.
I've heard that was like a common myth.
I've heard the argument too. I believe though that at least in some cases it wasn't a myth, it was actually the case. But I believe some have been found, but I'm not sure. But good point. So I mean, you live every day just to have pleasure upon pleasure upon pleasure, and not in the sanest way that Epicurus really recommended. I saw this movie with some college friends in a first-run theater in Chestnut Street in Philadelphia. We were so grossed out, because this is one of the more moderate parts of the film.
Ma come l'avete già cucinato? E la pesce non l'avete nemmeno aspettato. E allora portate così, il coco, chiamatemi. L'hai cotto intero, non l'hai aperto. Pietà, mia signora, piegatelo e frustatelo. Ho sbagliato, ma abbi pietà. Allora che aspetti, disgraziato? Aspettalo qua, adesso. I torti, prendete il cielo, ma non mi sono triste, ma non mi più prendere.
Offal is shit, by the way. That's why he's laughing. The blonde kid is the one that's the star of the whole series of excerpts. Oops. Sorry. Should I give you guys a trigger warning before playing something like that? But that's, I think, the way. Remember, Nero is not considered a great emperor. He's famous for being just the opposite. Murder, burned Rome, perhaps. Right? All that. Played the fiddle. They actually didn't have a fiddle. He had kind of a lyre, but played music while the city burned. So what the heck? Pretty gross stuff. So don't be an Epicurean that way, because you're not really following Epicurus that way. But so let's go to the Stoics. And the Stoics are another choice, and the Stoics realize that part of what Aristotle says is that in order to live in a good society, and how do you raise a good child, is you have to have a good village. A famous politician says it takes a village, right? You have to have a good village so that you can have, the good schools and the good, neighbors and good, support, and then you can raise a good family. And you need a good family if you're going to have, a good child, because you need all that kind of support, role models and everything, so that you can raise a good child. Well, for any of that to be the case, you have to have a society that's stable and running smoothly. So that's why Aristotle, in arguing about the best life, argues that really the study of the polis is really the most important study that you can make. And he's talking not just about what we would today call political or politics, right? But instead maybe more what we would even talk about as sociology. Right? Sociology really as a subject, when it was invented by Comte, Auguste Comte in France, named it socio, which is a Latin word, and ology, which is a Greek word. You're not supposed to join two different roots like that. But it really is politics, but in the big sense, because it talks about how the society functions and so on. I think that's more what Aristotle was thinking about. But in any case, you have to be in a society that's doing well for individuals to do well and raise children. that are doing well. And that means that all of those things that are needed in order to run the society, you actually have to have people that know what they're doing, take time out of their life to volunteer to do things, to run for office, to participate in the kind of government that's going on. And by the way, in his political science, Aristotle's political science, he talks about the different kinds of governments. You've got basically 3 types of government. The first one would be rule of one. And a good example of that would be an enlightened monarch, where you have a king or queen who is very knowledgeable, committed to the community and wants to do the best for it. The monarch is actually, the best interest of the monarch is actually united with the best interest of the community. And they can make decisions very quickly based on good information, and so that would be a really good government. What's weak about it is you could get a really bad government out of it, and that's if the monarch isn't enlightened and instead selfish and wants his own needs and doesn't care about the needs of the community. That becomes a bad one. And you could actually have a good government, a good monarch, who goes bad. I think if you're interested in Shakespeare's King Lear, the play King Lear, the man Lear has aged, and now he's basically got Alzheimer's and things of that sort. And now the kingdom is going to pot, and yet because it's an absolute monarchy, there's no recourse for everyone to try to fix it and say, Lear, that is dumb, don't do that. And so the whole play really is kind of how, a monarch who's gone way past the time he should still be monarch tries to pass it on to his daughters and ends up creating absolute havoc, and almost everybody dies. That's not really a tragedy, by the way. If you think a tragedy, what is a tragedy? A tragedy, from Aristotle, is a play where the hero does everything that's right and still perishes horribly in the end. Comedy, by the way, is a play where the main character, you wouldn't call him a hero, does everything wrong but succeeds completely in everything. It's just hilarious. A perfect example is Peter Sellers in Being There. Ever seen the movie Being There? Terrific movie. Peter Sellers, Being There.
Years. Since I was a child, I worked in this garden.
Then you really are a gardener.
Oh, yes.
May I ask your name?
Chancey Gardner.
Mr. Chancey Gardner. Are you related to Basil and Perdita Gardner?
No, I'm not related to Basil and Perdita.
Gobbledygook.
Chauncey, there's something about you. You play games with words to protect yourself.
And no brains at all. The stuff with rice pudding between the ears.
On television, Mr. President, you look much smaller.
Dumb as a jackass.
As long as the roots are not severed, all is well. And all will be well in the garden.
In the garden. Well, I'm gonna leave some information on Mr. Chauncey Gardner. What do you mean he's got no background? That's impossible.
Listen to that boy.
Mr. Gardner, the New York Times spoke of your peculiar brand of optimism. What was your reaction to that?
I do not know what it means.
Oh, he was very clever, keeping it at a third grade level. That's what they understand. He's very sexy.
But I think he's brilliant.
I raised that boy.
It's always somewhat surprising to find men like yourself working so intimately with the president and yet somehow managing to remain relatively unknown.
Yes, it is surprising.
And look at him now.
I can't write.
Well, I heard he speaks 8 languages.
I can't read. I like to watch TV.
All you gotta be is white in America.